My entitled brother got me kicked out of my home, so he can have the room all to himself. All he does all day is play video games and eat junk food, while I actually work very hard. Well, it turns out that's my problem for working hard, because my parents took his side and said, yeah, since you have a job, you don't need to live here. Well, guess what happened? He gets kicked out just a few months later for stealing money from them, and now he's coming to me, begging for my help, asking for a place to stay.
I've been lurking here for a few years. Reading the stories of others, little did I know that I might get into a situation where I'll have to seek advice from everybody. Alright, I'm 25 and male, and I'm a vehicle engineer and run a car garage in the suburbs. Things were running smoothly for me, until my brother showed up last week. He pleaded with me for help, requesting me to let him move in with me as our parents had just kicked him out. Had it been a normal situation, I would have just taken him in and would not be here sharing the details, but my little brother and I have a little history that goes back to our childhood days. My younger brother, let's call him Matt, was my parents' favorite child. My dad was a chef who always wanted to own a restaurant or at least an eatery place, and he used to save from his day job at a restaurant to start his own food van. However, his ventures always failed for some reason or the other, leaving him with no savings and a massive debt. The cycle got repeated 2 to 3 times, and after my young brother was born, my father gave one final shot to his food venture, which finally survived and gradually turned into a small eatery, hence my mom and dad considering Matt to be a lucky charm. Even after the last food venture got profitable, we ran short on budget because a lot of it went towards paying the debt which Dad incurred due to previous failed experiences. So while growing up, I always had to compromise because of our limited budget. Matt is 5 years younger than me, so by the time he was in school, he got the best of everything. The best stationery, the best crayons, and triple the pocket money I used to get. My parents never celebrated my birthday, stating financial crisis, however. Matt's birthday never missed a celebration. As he grew, his birthday celebration got grand and the gifts got grander. I would lie if I said it did not hurt me. It did like hell. I revolted often, but it was helpless. It was like 3 against 1. This was the primary reason I started earning quite early in life, and anger and ego started building up inside me, pushing me to work hard and get everything of my own which my brother got from our parents. I took up various part-time jobs in high school. Cashier at a supermarket, delivery executive at a pizza place, and a waiter at a cafe. I kept switching jobs for better pay, but lastly I landed a job at a garage that fascinated me. Besides the paycheck, I made decent money from my part-time job, and after ticking off all my wish list of branded clothes, shoes, and even a few gadgets, I started saving up my money. While my professional life, or whatever we can call it, was going decent, my relationship with my family soared. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment where my brother and I shared a room, and while juggling my studies with my part-time job, I had no routine for coming or leaving the house. My parents did not bat an eye as long as I did not bother them, but Matt was bothered about this. I used to wake up early to complete my school assignments and prepare for my exams, and then went to school. Post-school, I went to my part-time job and came home late, and this was my usual routine. Matt's concern was that I was disturbing his sweet sleep in the morning, and he spent all night playing video games or on social media, which had just started back then, and went to sleep in the wee hours of the morning, and after a few hours of his sleep, I used to wake up from my studies, but he got disturbed by the soft creaking and clanging on the floor room. Well, I could be on mute, but the closet would creak while opening or closing, and the perfume bottle would clang while using it. I could not mute that. Matt was deeply troubled by this. He used to wake up at the slightest rattle and pounced on me for disturbing him, and I used to fight back, asking him to stuff his ears with earbuds. We had ugly fights every other day, and as usual, my parents, especially my mom, sided with Matt. I knew that Matt was angry with me, not only because I disturbed him in his morning sleep, but also because I did not fulfill his demands. When I first started my job, I used to buy good clothes, shoes, perfumes, or some gadgets almost every month. I wanted everything Matt already owned because my parents never got that for me and Matt never shared. Quite mature, huh? I know. But come on, I was 16. During that phase, Matt demanded some video games and clothing from me. I initially refused, but my mom rebuked me for turning down my younger brother's request. She said that it was my moral responsibility to fulfill some of my brother's wishes since I was earning, and I felt obliged by his, quote, moral responsibility thing, and fulfilled his demands quite a few times. However, I was smart enough to understand their trap and stopped obeying their request. Meanwhile, I switched my job at the car garage and told my family that my new job simply did not pay that well, so I could not gift him anything. Matt, being Matt, got offended by this and cut off. Although our parents still fulfilled his menace demands, he was, quote, deeply hurt by my actions, and as narrated by my mother, I don't give a crap about it, and saved my hard-earned money for me. After this incident, Matt started acting unreasonably, blowing up trivial matters into a heated argument and rebuking me for disturbing his sleep. 7 years ago, it was a fateful day when I woke up in the morning to complete my school assignment while Matt was asleep. I carefully crawled toward the study table and started working on my project, and I made the bare minimum noise not to disturb the sleep of Matt. It wasn't like I was scared of him, but I did not want unnecessary trifles. It would upset my routine and, most importantly, my mental peace. While I was wholly engrossed in my assignment, somehow my stationery box slipped from the table and hit the ground with a sharp rattling noise of the scattering stationery items. My heart sank. I knew it. I was going to be in trouble. So, Matt woke up screaming at the top of his voice, blaming me for the intentional chaos, and the next hour was no less than an animal fight pit, verbally. Matt went as far as he took out the sleeping pills and tried to pop them into his mouth, saying, "You know what? I'll have these pills every night so that you don't disturb me while sleeping." He was stopped by my mother just seconds before the act. He laid a clear choice in front of my parents. It was either he or I who got to stay in the house. It was a no-brainer for my parents to choose him, because I was the elder and, quote, mature. Most importantly, I was earning money. In a moment of rage, without thinking twice, I packed my stuff and left. Reality hit me hard after I came out of the house and walked almost half a mile, and I had nowhere to go. All of my anger, frustration, and helplessness came out as warm tears. I sat on an empty pavement and cried my heart out. Meanwhile, I was getting calls from my father, who was not home when all this happened, and I thought he called me to plead with me to return, but guess what? He called to assure me that he would still pay my college tuition fees and that I should not, quote, worry. I was stunned and kept mumming. He then hung up, wishing me good luck. I went to the garage where I worked and narrated my misery to my boss, who owned the garage. He took pity on me and offered me a tiny servant's quarter in the backyard, which I readily accepted. That room smelt of grease and washing gas, and I spent the next few months surrounded by dismantled cars, auto parts, and dirt. Eventually, I asked my boss to hand over the front desk work, since I was primarily put in the garage after school. I was educated, young, and active compared to the other workers, so I got the upgrade to the front desk. I used the computer to study and made it to the top 10 in my final years of school. My boss was happy about my success, and the school invited my parents to attend my graduation day, and they arrived with their entitled son, Matt, with a plastered smile as if nothing had happened. None of them asked me how I was doing. They just congratulated me and said that I looked good. That's it. After high school, I applied for an associate's degree in automobile engineering. Due to my good grades and practical knowledge of autos, I cracked the admission interview and got a full scholarship. I texted the details to my father with the hope of getting a full-blown congratulatory call, praising me for my achievement and thanking me that had saved their tuition fee money. What I got from him was, "Wow, congratulations, love, take care." That's it. No other details were asked, and anyways, I visit the house only twice after leaving it on that fateful day, and first, to collect some of my belongings because I'd left the house with only a few pair of clothing articles and some essentials. I just had the bare minimum stuff, so after settling into the garage backyard, I went to my house to pick up my clothing and a few other belongings while leaving the rest. I did not have space to accommodate everything, you know. The second time I went home when leaving the city for college, and during both visits, my mother was at home alone. I kept the conversation bare minimum with her, and on my second to last visit, she told me that since I was moving out, I could give my stuff to my younger brother, instead of loading them to the other city. I ignored her. While I was loading all my discarded items into the big plastic rug, she suggested some might be useful to Matt. I could leave them for him instead of dumping them, and I ignored her again, and I left the house with all my belongings and stuffed the rug of discarded items into the dustbin outside. She sneered at me from inside. They kicked me out of the house and abandoned me. They were never remorseful of their actions, and she did not offer any food or drinks when I went home. How does she expect me to be civil with her? I shifted to my college dorm and took part job at a nearby garage. My experience in ongoing studies made it easier for me to land a high-paying part-time job, and soon after college I cracked a job at an automobile company. I worked there for a few years, lived frugally at a shabby apartment and saved enough, took some loans and opened my tiny garage in the suburbs last year. I know it was risky to burn all my savings for my garage. Coming back to present, everything was going pretty smoothly until last week when my younger brother Matt appeared at my garage. As soon as he saw me, he hugged me, and I was surprised. That was our first hug as far as I could remember, and he looked weak and pale, with purple dark circles under his eye. I asked him for the reason for his sudden visit, and he sobbed and said that my parents had kicked him out after he stole the money from my father's restaurant. I was surprised how they could get rid of their lucky charm. Seeing how much Matt was pampered, he would not have been expelled from the house just for stealing once. I probed him and learned that he's been stealing money for the last 2 years. He's been caught by my father and his staff several times. He also dropped out of school after the 9th grade, and my father was agitated, but my mother convinced him that a 9th grade's knowledge was sufficient to run the restaurant. I asked him what he was doing with all those money, and he said that he gambled on online gaming platforms, and his dark circles was also the outcome of his gaming addiction/marathons. He pleaded with me to help and take him with me, as he had nowhere to go, and he said that he borrowed some money from his friends to buy a bus ticket to my place, and if I did not support him, he'd be disappointed. I told him I needed time to consider it, as I don't earn enough to support 2 people. Besides, seeing our history, I'm not obliged to help him. He asked for forgiveness for his narcissistic behavior in the past, stating he was a kid. He swore that he loved me and won't disturb me ever. I'm at a fix for a week. I've put Matt up at a hostel for the time being, and he asked me if I could take him to my apartment, but I denied it because my friend and I jointly leased it, and I could not take anyone without discussing it with him. Besides, it's a 2-bedroom tiny apartment that cannot accommodate a third person. I'm still living frugally because most of my income goes towards the loan I took out for the garage. I don't know what to do with him. Yesterday, I asked him about his plans, and he said that he would be thinking about it soon, and I asked him to take up a part-time job as I could only support him briefly. I spoke to my roommate regarding this situation, and he offered to let Matt in the living room for a while. I thanked him for his kindness, but I'm still deciding whether to allow Matt inside the house or not, and I'm still unsure if he wants to reform his life or if he's just playing the victim and wanted to be a freeloader as has always been. He's interviewing for some odd jobs nearby, and I pity him for letting him live in that shabby, tiny hostel room cramped with 5 other men. I know he's not entirely at fault. My parents have a massive role in his failure by encouraging narcissistic, entitled behavior. I don't know, guys, whether I should let him in or abandon him as my parents did to me 7 years ago. Any advice or suggestions on this matter is highly appreciated.
Alright guys, the second an update comes out for this story, you'll be the first to see it. This is a brand new fresh story, and I got a feeling this roommate arrangement thing is not going to work out very well. But I do want to hear from you guys. If you were in OP's position, and we know the history between OP and his family and his brother, would you have helped out? Go ahead and drop your comments in the comment section down below, but here's the main question. Would you have taken in your own brother knowing these circumstances? Guys, I'm looking forward to seeing from your comments down below, so go ahead, comment, and if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have an amazing day, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.